Welcome to the Weekly Roar, coming live from the Lion's Den, helping new managers become great leaders and awesome bosses. And now, here's your host, Greg Storch.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome to the Weekly Roar! Thanks for coming back to the Lion's Den for this week's watch party. I actually just landed a few hours ago back in Venice after spending 5 days with some awesome leaders and my mentor, John C. Maxwell in Orlando, Florida. Man, it was awesome. But it's great to be back home so we can talk about another concept in the foundations of leadership. But before I jump into today's topic, let me introduce myself for those of you who might be watching for the first time. I'm Greg Storch, and I am the founder of Lion Enterprise, a leadership development and coaching company where I'm placing my focus on helping organizations develop positive work cultures. I'm a certified professional leadership coach and also a certified speaker and trainer. All right. Hey, did you join me for the Weekly Roar last Wednesday? I continued the series called Follow the Leader: Concepts in the Foundations of Leadership. Last week's topic was about the price we pay to assume the leadership role and how the price continues to increase as we move up the leadership ladder. I shared a few personal examples of some of the sacrifices I've made in my own leadership journey that were meant to serve as great examples of that concept. If you didn't make it into the Lion's Den for the Weekly Roar last week, don't worry about it. You know what to do. Go to my website at www.lion-enterprise.com. Click at the top of the page on the Lion's Pride Library, and when you get there, you're going to see all of my latest videos. Last week's video is number 68, and it's a great way for you to get more of the roar. So this week, I'm talking about how our timing as leaders is just as critical as knowing what to do and where to go. Timing is everything. Without knowing when to lead, it won't much matter that you have a destination and a means to go there. The 3 W's of leadership, the what, where, and when, are the 3 main legs of the leadership stool. Take out any of them and you're going to fall right over. All right, let's go ahead and talk about this concept. Timing. They say that timing is everything. That's pretty much true if you think about it. And when it comes to leadership, there's no doubt that it's critical for a leader to understand when the time is right. I say timing is everything because there is certainly the right time to do something, and leaders must know when that time is. It's just as important as knowing what to do and where to go. And just as much as there's a right time to do things, the opposite holds true. There's also a wrong time to do things. Do some things too early or too late when the timing's not right, and your results can be disastrous. Not only will it affect your leadership, but it can also negatively impact those you lead. If you want to achieve success as a leader, then you must understand how critical a role timing plays in the big scheme of things. Get it right, and you'll meet with success. Get it wrong, and inevitably you'll make a mistake, create resistance, or it will even end in disaster. No doubt you all have heard the name Wayne Gretzky. He was arguably the most successful hockey player in the history of the sport. But he wasn't successful because he skated to where the puck was. No, he was successful because he had the ability to skate where the puck was going to be. See, timing is crucial to success. If you want to be a better leader than you already are, then you should learn to recognize that the timing of when to lead is just as important as knowing where you need to take your followers and how you're going to get them there. Have you ever seen the movie Master and Commander with Russell Crowe? I thought it was a really good movie, but maybe it's because I was in the Navy, so I have that bias lens on, right? But if you saw the movie, then you'll remember some of the scenes I'm talking about that really depict how important it is for leaders to know when to lead, when the timing is right to take action. So this movie, Master and Commander, takes place around 1800. And this is during the time when France was still under the rule of Napoleon, and they were at war with England. Now, Russell Crowe is a commander in the British Navy who's in pursuit of a French ship across the Atlantic Ocean. Now, Crowe and his crew, say that 3 times fast, Crowe and his crew ultimately find the French ship, and it's anchored just offshore. And what they realize is they know they need the element of surprise if they want to have any chance of winning a battle with that ship. Crowe knew that timing was critical if they wanted to be successful in their engagement of the French. So what does Crowe do? Well, he basically disguises his ship as a whaler to lure the French ship closer to them within striking distance. See, back in the age of sail, disguise and deception were used quite a bit. Warships would change their appearance so they could fool the enemy, and that allowed them to make captures or even avoid battles. So, long story short, the French ship approaches the disguised British ship, placing themselves in harm's way. They basically get tricked into setting themselves up for the attack. And this is where the movie really shows how important timing can be for a leader if they want to have the best chances of meeting success. Timing is everything. If the British ship is recognized as a warship too early, it could mean losing the battle by showing their colors too soon. And if they delayed their attack for too long, the French could have figured out the deception in time to make a more offensive position against the British. Either way, timing was critical to Crowe's success in Master and Commander. If you want to improve your chances for a successful outcome as a leader, then you gotta consider that depending on the timing that you take the action will dictate the results you get. Each possible outcome really depends on when you decide to take the action. So timing is critical. Knowing when to take action in every leadership situation will be the difference maker between success and failure. Let me explain what I'm talking about. Let's say your timing is off, and so is the action you intend to take. So, wrong action at the wrong time. Anytime a leader finds themselves with this combination, it's sure to end in disaster. I've told you before that I was born and raised in Daytona Beach. As soon as I tell people that, the first question they ask me is if I'm a NASCAR fan. Well, I'm not. But NASCAR is full of examples of how taking the wrong action at the wrong time can end in disaster. As a matter of fact, at these speeds, the disaster can mean the difference between life and death. The Daytona International Speedway actually has suffered more NASCAR fatalities than any other track. Now, even if you aren't a NASCAR fan, you probably heard about one of NASCAR's most famous drivers, Dale Earnhardt, who died in a crash during the Daytona 500 back in 2001. No matter what you lead, a department, a company, your family, your community, or even a place of worship, your followers and your leadership will always suffer when you take the wrong action at the wrong time. Okay, so what if you know what action you need to take, but you do it at the wrong time? Having a vision for the direction of your organization and knowing how to get there isn't enough. If you take the right action at the wrong time, you will still be unsuccessful because the people you lead will start to become resistant. Now, why does that happen? Because when leaders repeatedly make bad judgment calls, which is what taking the right action at the wrong time really is, then their followers start to think that the real mistake is having you as their leader. Ugh. Now, if you've ever given well-meaning advice before the person was ready to hear it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Or maybe you've experienced the loss of a team member because you failed to communicate your appreciation in a timely manner, and they were left feeling underappreciated. Although showing appreciation is the right action to take, doing it at the wrong time can really make people become resistant to you as their leader. Okay, so those are two examples of taking some type of action at the wrong time. Whether you take the wrong action or the right action, if the timing is not right, the outcomes will not be favorable. It will either end in disaster or distrust. So let's talk about when leaders take actions, whether they're good or bad actions, but they do that at the right time. Have you ever made a mistake? I already know the answer. Of course you have. We're humans. We all make mistakes, right? I make them all the time. I've probably made some during the weekly roar today. Well, making a mistake comes from taking the wrong action at the right time. It happens. If you're an entrepreneur like me, then you probably have a good sense of timing. Entrepreneurs tend to intuitively know when timing is right to make a move or take an advantage of an opportunity. Not all of them, but many of them do. So, what can be considered a wrong action at the right time? One of the examples that comes to mind for me is something I saw happen quite frequently when I was a program manager in IT. There were many times when some of the project managers that were working for me had projects that were understaffed. In the federal contracting world, being understaffed means that you're losing out on potential revenue. Not good. So when the pressure to move quickly is added to the mix, I had project managers who made the decision to fill the vacancy on the project as quickly as possible without prioritizing the skills needed. The focus became on the body and not the skill. What ended up happening was that the person they added to the team was not fully prepared to contribute to the project. That ended up costing us time and money because we had to announce the position again to hire someone else with the right skills. So the wrong action, putting an inexperienced person on the project at the right time when the project needed additional help, ended up being a costly mistake. Okay, that was one of the examples I could think of. Now that leaves us with one last possible combination of timing and action. And that is taking the right action at the right time. When leaders do this, they can almost always guarantee their success and the success of their team. Now, I know that sounds pretty simple, almost like it doesn't need to be said, but it needs to be remembered that this is the only combination, the right action at the right time, that produces success. You know, I always surprise people when I tell them that I was deployed in Iraq with the Marines. They always say, "But I thought you were in the Navy. How were you in the desert?" I was, but that's where the Marines get their medical support from. So in 2003, as the US geared up for war in Iraq, I found myself staged in Kuwait as the medical planner for one of the Marines' combat service support battalions. I remember when we got the call to prepare to move into Iraq. It was late in March 2003 when our convoys began to line up. And just before midnight, we headed into Iraq under the cover of darkness. Now, we knew the time was coming, but there were certain things that had to take place in the days prior before we could successfully make our way to Baghdad. Special forces had to secure critical targets and control points, and the large border wall along the Kuwaiti-Iraqi border, well, that had to be breached, blown up in certain locations in order for the Army and the Marine Corps battalions to make their way from Kuwait into Iraq. Had we tried to move too early, we would have certainly met with disaster had the breach not been made or those key targets not secured in the days prior. And had we gone too late, we would have lost our element of surprise. But luckily, we took the right action at the right time, and our military ground forces descended upon Baghdad within 2 weeks. You know, unfortunately, war serves as great examples of how taking the right action at the right time can result in success. If you look back at the winning side of any war, you'll clearly see examples of the decisive actions that were taken at the right time that decided the war in their favor. Okay, now you've heard about the combinations we can experience as leaders when the timing is right, but we take either the right or wrong action. It means the difference between making a mistake or experiencing success. I know I've said that timing is everything, but there are some factors that actually contribute to good timing when it comes to leadership. It just isn't dumb luck. First of all, situational awareness. How well do you understand the situation? In order to make decisions, we have to be informed on as much information as possible. Study the situation and make your decisions based on facts, not emotions. Leaders who carefully study their organizational cultures and are not tone deaf to what's happening in their environment have a better chance of taking the right action at the right time. Another factor is our maturity level as a leader. We have to be mature enough to base our decisions on the right motives. A mature leader, they're going to align their motives with their values and their mission statement. If a leader's motives aren't right, their timing won't be either. The other thing you need to look at is, do you have the experience to take the action and the confidence of those who will be impacted by it? We need to be confident in our decisions. Remember, first the buy-in and then the all-in. If we're not totally committed to the decision, it may be time to reconsider the timing of taking action. There are times as leaders when we need to decide whether we're the right person to accept a certain leadership role or drive a change in our organizations or even start a new project. You know, the answer might be yes, but it might be no. And leaders need to have the experience to know when the time is right for their leadership. Good leadership timing also requires that we're decisive. As leaders, we're required to serve as the decision maker, and a good leader is decisive. They don't hem and haw over a decision. And when you make a decision, you got to stand behind it and move forward without hesitation. When we start doubting our decision, we lose the momentum that originally got the ball rolling in the first place. Our followers don't want wishy-washy leaders. When they come to us for a decision, they need to trust that we can make it and will make it without hesitation. I've talked about trusting your gut in the weekly roar before, but relying on your intuition as a leader is also a requirement for good timing. If it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. This requires leadership courage, but wise leaders learn to listen to their intuition. You know, I once heard someone say that leaders shouldn't confuse the fear of the unknown with not knowing at all. Think about that. I'm going to say it again. Leaders shouldn't confuse fear of the unknown with not knowing at all. Okay, now finally, I can't say enough about preparation. You got to be prepared. If the conditions aren't right, then you have to be ready to create the right conditions. When the conditions don't seem perfectly clear, take a step back and take a closer look at the facts and determine what it takes to make them clear. Now, if it's something you can control, then go for it. Keep moving forward. But if you evaluate it and find that it's something out of your control, that might be an indicator that it's time to reevaluate your timing. To be successful, we don't just need to do the right things. We need to do the right things at the right time. If you want your team, your business, your organization to move forward, you not only have to know where to go and what to do, but you also have to know when to take the right action. Only the right action at the right time will bring you success. Okay, everyone, there's another concept in the foundations of leadership. Please leave your thoughts and comments down below. Let me know what you think. What are some examples that you've experienced of taking the right action at the right time? Thanks so much again for tuning in this week for another weekly roar. I appreciate your support so much, you guys. And remember, if you like this content, can you please share out my videos to your networks? Share out the weekly roar video that I'll post here after the watch party, but don't share the actual watch party link because once it ends, the watch party can't be viewed anymore. I'm going to be back here again next week, same place, same time, to speak about another concept in the foundations of leadership. Hey, next week, I'm going to talk about the differences in growth when we lead followers and when we lead other leaders. There's a big difference between the two, and the difference can result in your exponential growth. All right, until we meet again next week, remember everybody, be powerful, but stay poised just like a lion. Bye, you guys.
Thanks for watching the Weekly Roar live event at lionenterprise.com. If you enjoyed this video, please tell others to join us each week here in the Lion's Den. Thanks again, and see you next week.